Gracie's not always sitting patiently getting eaten alive by march flies while I'm mumbling over some convict bricks. She has her own YouTube channel where she shows off her scent work, and you can see that at Gracie's Sniffing Adventures. Gracie and I are at the coal mines today, and what we intend to do is give you a tour of the new military barracks, which was located behind the original military barracks. Where Gracie's patiently laying there is under the veranda right at the front door of the new military barracks. July of 1842 saw plans approved for the building of the new barracks for the troops due to the overcrowded in the existing one. Now, I gave figures and all that of the troop levels and the crowding that were taking place in the original barracks. Have a look at the military barracks video, that'll give you some more information. The new barracks were to be a building to hold over 100 men and an officer on a suitable spot not too removed from the existing station. So as I said, we're right behind the original barracks. This is where the new barracks was intended to be built. As well as a larger accommodation area, there would also be a hospital for the military. Now, it's not known when work first commenced here. I have a plan of the building, and it dates to around 1837, but I don't think they really got to work up here until about 1845, around that time there. There is no record of when construction started here. Now, we had the front door over in that direction, where Gracie was laying. We'll start down at this end of the building first. This room here has often been called, I think just about in every archaeological survey and other things on the coal mines, the hospital for the military barracks. That is absolutely wrong, as I'll prove to you in the next couple of minutes. This area here has always mystified me. The different shapes and that we'll see in a second, it never made sense until I really got hold of the 1837 plans for this building, and then it all come to light. But stop rambling on. The front door is here, and you come into here, and this was a guard room, 4.8 by 3.9. There's supposed to be on this side here a bed for whoever was doing the guarding, and on this side here there was a half a hexagonal. I don't know what the term is for half an hexagonal, but it's a shape I've never seen in any other of the buildings here at the coal mines. The shape appears in the smaller rooms that are here. I don't believe it's a fireplace. There were 3 fireplaces here, and one was located just the other side of where that pink tape is, where that dead tree is. These smaller rooms didn't have a fireplace, and some are near a fireplace, but others are nowhere near a fireplace. So I don't know what they were, whether there was something to do with a wash area or something like that. I'll have to have a look at Port Arthur next time I'm there, and have a look at the ruins there and see if I can see anything that matches them. So we're going through the guard room here, and there was a doorway here. And then when I was roping this up, I cleared all just the dead wood off it. But when I was roping this back area up, I kind of knew pretty early on what I was looking at. And these here are 2 cells. Now, why would you have 2 cells located up here when down at the main convict area there's 9 wards that could hold up to 30 convicts each, plus more solitary confinement cells than there were at Port Arthur? The reason being is these cells were used for the soldiers that misbehaved, and they were given a sentence of time in these cells here. So they were never used for the convict, it was only used for the military soldiers. Now, beside here, we just travelled down a passage, and this here is the powder magazine. You can see it's raised in the front here, and I believe that's some type of firewall. And then it goes over the back here to where my rope is, and this is where the gunpowder was stored. The gunpowder was used by the soldiers in their rifles, as well as the gunpowder was used as an explosive to break up the rocks in the mine shafts. So this little area here is about 900 by 1 metre, and right next door to our 2 cells for the soldiers that misbehaved. So this is where the doorway would have been, here, and then a bed would have been here. And that's the smaller of the 2. One's about 1.5 wide, and the other's 1.2, and they both have a length of 2.4. So when the convicts were building this, maybe they thought it was a joke and decided that one of the soldiers should have a smaller room, or maybe they just mucked up the measurements. Who knows? So you come back down here on the passageway, and then that's the doorway to the second cell. And then this area here is closed off. You go no further when you get to this section here. Coming back round here, this here would be in the wall where this tree is now. And you can see here the tree roots have come up and pulled up what sandstone remains in this half hexagonal section. But that wall there marries up to the side of this large room there, which we'll get to in a moment. I'm now at the rear of the 2 cells, and this bit here is rather critical, well, in my mind anyway. You can see I've got my ropes crossed here, but this one here is the wall that I was just talking about, which continues down to where we entered, down the side of the cell. And this here foundation goes across that way. It doesn't go much further than where this tree is laying on the top of it, but it does, the direction I'm looking at travels in the string over there, which was a wall to another room. And then coming back this way, looking west, where my string goes, that travels down in a westerly direction, enclosing the rooms that were on the right hand side of the screen as you look at it. This is the corner of the northern cell, and you can see there what happens when the trees start to fall down here, which they do on a regular basis. It starts to pull up the foundations, and sometimes they can hit the buildings. Luckily this one hasn't. Now, just before we start getting into the main building, here's another one of these pieces of sandstone that's shaped a bit like a drain, and there's one there and one, I believe, there in a similar pattern. And there's another one that I found up here, which we'll get to later. Now, these 2 are beside the hexagonal pattern that's under the tree roots here, and the other one that I found is also beside a hexagonal pattern. So why would you have a guard room right out the front here? Well, obviously to have a guard to keep an eye on the soldiers that were in the cells, plus somebody to guard the gunpowder. The powder wouldn't have been stored down at the commissariat store or the old stores that were under the penitentiary wing, because the stealing was rampant back in those days, and having the rum and tobacco disappear was bad enough, but you didn't want the convicts running around with gunpowder. So we'll hop out of the sergeant's room, go back out the front door, which is located here. And then here you can just see the foundations here. They travel along to there, so I've got about 4 blocks of sandstone, maybe 5 or 6, sorry. And we'll travel along this long room here as we get down to the front door. Right, so I am at the front door here now. Sorry about the trees. On this side here was the soldiers' room, and it was 9.7 by 6. And then down here is a passageway that goes all the way to the end of the building, and it's 17 metres long. So we'll travel down this passageway, And sorry, we'll have to just go round the tree. And we're back in the passageway. And over there is the soldiers' room that we've just left. And here is a second soldiers' room. And it goes down in a rectangular fashion. It's 9.7 by 6 as well. Now keep in mind that the old barracks is only 15 by 6 total. So we've already got 2 rooms, 9.7 by 6 for the soldiers. So let's hop back on to the passageway, go down to the hall, and this would have been to the doorway here to the Western soldiers' room. But we'll continue down here out the back door. Now at the rear of the 17 metre long passage, that there is the northern end of the building, and this way here is the southern end, which will travel along. You can see my rope and tree limb there. It'll give you an idea. There's bits of sandstone there, but when we get to this point here, you can see there's a sandstone cornering which travels down that direction there. Now that links up with that piece of rope. You might say, well Todd, you've got more rope than spaghetti bolognese in front of you. But at that rope there, that was travelling down on this direction, at the back of the cell, marries up exactly down to this point here. So we know that we're in the right area of where the corner foundations are at this end here. That's the southwest corner there that we've just visited. So we're back at the passageway here, and now we're going to pay a visit to the northwest corner of the building. And I don't have any foundation along here, but my measurements give me approximately the northwest corner would be in this location here. There is a tiny bit of sandstone there. That may well be wishful thinking, but I've got it around that location there. We'll travel along here, and this is where a boundary is for the room. And this room here we're looking at is the hospital. This hospital is 4.5 by 6, and this here gives you a great example of what happens when the trees die and fall over here. The roots don't get down very deep because there's no soil left up here on the top of the hill. It's all been washed away since the convicts finished gardening here. But what is left of this monument, whatever, is the hexagonal shapes that I showed you in the guard room, that also appeared on the plan in this room here, which is the hospital, and this room over here, which was a room for 2 married men, and that was 4.5 by 6 as well. So this tree would have been laying on this area here, and then part of what we saw up in the guard room, which I'm at the bottom of the tree that was up there, that's about to fall down, is exactly the same as what the shapes were down here. And just along the wall here, we know we're on the boundary because we can see there's sandstone and a bit more sandstone. We'll just have a closer look at this relic. You can see here that it's another one of these pieces of sandstone that has that curved shape. It's only one of 3 I've seen up here, and the rest of these sandstone is the foundations that would have surrounded it. So if this was still in the ground, it might have given us a better picture of what these sandstone shapes were used for and what the purpose of those hexagonal, half hexagonal shapes in the smaller rooms meant. But there's a few other pieces of sandstone here, a large block there, and these don't just appear naturally on top of the soil up here. Just here I've got a couple of relics that come out of the roots here. It's a large piece of metal. It may be the top of a barrel or something there. There's some rivets in it, and I also had here another very heavy piece of metal, which I haven't got the clue what it was for. Maybe it was some type of wedge or something, I don't know. Just beside the fallen tree is a large clump of lime mortar that has bits and pieces of brick in it. I don't believe this building was built of brick, but they may have used that to fill in part of the foundations that were around the structure that was here originally. So the doorway for the hospital was in that corner there, and there are a couple of windows going along here. This is the wall that leads back into the passage, but there was no doorway on this side of the hospital. There was only the one facing north, and it was the same with the room for two married men. Is their doorway was over in that corner there where that bush is, and the entry was from that point, not from the passageway. But we'll head down the passageway anyway, and this comes here where this rope is here. So that's the wall for the two married men, and on this side of the two married men's room is another soldier's room, 9 by 7 by 6. So again, the total area of the old building was 15 by 6. The soldiers here were going to be allocated a lot more room. And if you come down here, and I run out of rope, but on this end here, the building would have come up from where that pink is on my rope to about right up to the wall here, and two small rooms that would marry up the size of the guard room and prisoner cells. That would have been the company sergeant's room down this end and an orderly room and store. So that would have been right up to where that log is there, and it would have enclosed this area off. I can't see any foundations down here on this corner, but there is a raised mound. There could be something under there. I gave it a miss here at this end. So let's head back here, just so you get your bearings again if you do want to come up here and try to retrace my steps. And this brings us back here to that long passageway in the front door under the veranda at the front of the building. Let's pop back into the guard room. Just want to get this on film for you, but the room itself is square. The rope that goes around the back there comes to here and then past the pink tape here. So it's a closed wall, and then where this tree is, the tree roots are growing, is this half hexagonal shape going across here that protrudes slightly into the room. It curves back here and comes out to here. So that was what we saw over at the edge, or the dividing wall area between the hospital and the room for the two married men. The question is, was it ever lived in? I don't think the barracks were completed. I suspect this end here, the guard room, prisoner's cell and powder room, was completed, and it would have been weatherboard. I don't believe it was sandstone. Obviously the foundation areas are sandstone, but just looking at the amount of rubble here, or the lack of rubble, I don't believe it went, the walls were built with sandstone. If it was never built, then why were these sandstone blocks here? I think they started construction on this, and they started the blocks in each corner as you do, and then they got their measurements from there, and they started the guard room, powder room, prisoner cells first up. One, I suspect, to have a secure location for the gunpowder, and then second of all they decided to work over here where the hospital and two married men's room were, and just started to build small sections from there. There's no real brick rubble over this area. There's a couple of pieces of brick which people have carried with them and dropped for some reason, but there is, again here at the bottom of the tree, lots and pieces of broken up sandstone, which again I suggest comes from the mine shaft, and the instructions were that this was built or had to be built from locally sourced material. Now that means that they couldn't get the bricks from Port Arthur, and even though the brick kiln, I believe, was going around the period when the construction of the this barracks started, the problem was that down at the main area, the building of the separate apartments and then the 36 odd solitary cells under them, and it might have been the time too when they were completing the civil officers' quarters. That's the 10 rooms down there made of brick. So all that was going on there down there, and they just simply didn't have the labour or the material to continue work up here. And I believe as far as it ever got was the guard room, prisoner cells and the powder room. I'm just behind the cells for the soldiers, and just here you can see where a convict would have been mixing the lime mortar for the foundations. Large clump of lime mortar and nothing else here. I note in the lime mortar it's got aggregate, which I've seen in the bricks down at the civil officers' quarters near the separate apartments. Not all the bricks have them at the coal mines. I'm unsure as to where it was sourced. So there you have it, the new military barracks at the coal mines. Just standing here beside this sandstone enclosure here, which I called a sentry tower on the military barracks video, and it's right beside the kitchen area. There's a doorway through to the kitchen with the barracks over here. The question is, why did they put so many bricks here? If you were just to close this area here off, why not just go to where that sandstone wall is there and come in about just under a metre and then just close it off there? Why come all the way out to here? And then having a look at this again here, I think now this could have been where the gunpowder was stored originally, because on the plans for the original barracks there is no location for a powder room. So what I believe is this was the powder room, and then they put these bricks here across the front of it to give it protection in case it blew up. Pretty well much the same as the raised area is on the new powder room on the new barracks area.